left, right.
Hey, it's episode 27 of SipTalk. Today we're talking about UBI. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Find out for yourself. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course it's Philly.
Cheers.
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 Boom. All right, we're live. What do you have to drink over there in the library?
It's gonna be my typical. Oh wow, it doesn't want to pick that up.
I can't see.
All right.
I see
It's
Jim Beam.
Yeah, it's a Jim Beam can. Jim Beam koozie, Milwaukee's best ice. Keeping it light tonight.
Is it iced or is it warm?
It's in a koozie.
Nah, well, I got a Jack to buy him. Okay. So I don't have a drink yet, actually. But welcome to episode 27, Sip Talk. We're really cruising here. I got to get a drink. I have options here. So I got, I batch made, this is pretty badass, actually. I batch made Negronis in my French press.
Or what's the other option?
And now they're in the freezer. So they're nice. They're almost kind of slushy because it's not a super high alcohol. I mean, it is high alcohol content, but whatever. So frozen Negroni. Or I got some scotch, which is a winner. Or I got some beer. Or I think I got a White Claw.
My vote is scotch.
Scotch. White Claw, scotch, or beer. You going with scotch?
I'm not a huge fan of White Claw. I don't understand the appeal.
All right. Well, look, you got to hold the camera. I got to get some ice. We'll be right back, and we will get started.
All right. Well, for this episode of Sip Talk, we're going to be talking about universal basic income. Justin's been doing a little bit of research on it, and it's gotten a lot more attention in the last year or so, primarily because of the candidacy of Andrew Yang before he dropped out of the race. But now with the pandemic and a lot of people depending on unemployment income to be able to pay their bills and everything, it's an issue that's getting a lot more prominence because we're looking and saying, there are circumstances where people are just not able to work even if they want to. And how are they going to be able to pay their bills?
What's wild now that all of a sudden this is super prevalent, Andrew Yang's out, and now it's something that's like actual reality. Like, you know, I don't know what the unemployment numbers look like, or, you know, I think everybody got pandemic pay unless they owed money in their taxes, right?
So the way that the $1,200 stimulus check worked was if you made less than, it was I think $78,000 a year, then you got the full $1,200, and then between 78 and I think 99,000 or so, it phased out. It was like 50 cents on the dollar or so. So if you made between like 78 and 99, you get a partial payment, and I think if you made over about $100,000 a year, you got zero.
Yeah.
And then if you're married, basically double those numbers, combine yours and your wife or whoever, combine those
You get money
incomes.
for the kids, right?
What?
And
You got $500 per child.
Not bad, man.
So if you're a family of four, you would have gotten $3,400.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Really quick, Derek Rad said he's going to send some pre-made teas from Unbelievable Nutrition so we can mix with some vodka and tequila. So I am down with that. He's got a new
Sounds cool.
New shop serving up healthy stuff. So got to find out more information. Check that out. But I got my drink. You got yours. You want to throw that up there one more time? Finally, we can see it. So yeah, I did as much research as anybody does in 2020. I watched some YouTube videos while I did work, which means I didn't watch them, but I half listened to them, which is pretty intensive, R&D on my end.
Yeah, by your standards.
So, but yeah, I really have mixed feelings about it. I think like any other good idea, there's downsides. And I think it's something that really needs to be fully comprehended. And, you know, if there's some version of the application of the idea, there just needs to be a lot of thought put into it rather than a bunch of people on Twitter posting hashtags, free money, free lunch.
Right.
The idea of getting free money, I think, is cool for anybody receiving it, but there's a lot more to it than just getting free money.
Well, yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
And Andrew Yang talks a lot about the future of different types of careers, different industries in the U.S. And that's where he gets he makes some really good points. But still, I don't know how to roll out the application. Where's the money coming from? What's it mostly getting spent on? And what I'm curious what anybody who's watching right now would do if they had an extra. What's he saying? $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week?
Andrew Yang, I think, was on $1,000 a month, so it's $12,000 a year.
So some people are getting $1,000 a week with this unemployment pandemic. No, they are. I'm telling you that. So.
Oh, I guess yeah. If you got not anymore, but like the 600 plus whatever the other unemployment would have been, probably got you right around 1,000.
Right around $1,000. So we had people getting $4,000 basically for free. For the first time in their lives, basically getting a free regular statement. Somebody just said they'd invest in stocks, which I think is great, but
you've seen a lot of people doing that.
But well, that's why the stock market, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, why the stock market has had a really big jump is because a lot of people are just getting this free money. Why not?
That's not the main reason. Retail money hasn't been the reason propping up the stock market. A large part of the reason has been the massive government spending on the Fed side in terms of investing, especially on the corporate bond markets. The retail dollars and
I'm not saying retail spending. I'm not saying
no. So when I say retail, like the retail market in stocks is people like you and me buying stocks.
Okay.
That's what I mean by the retail market. Whereas, and then you've got kind of institutional investing, which is going to be a company like Berkshire Hathaway, Goldman Sachs, any of the big companies that do investment. And then you've got government investment. And what you've seen a huge increase in is government investment to shore up the corporate debt.
That's what Wakas just said. Wakas, you heard that? Talking about government investment. Exactly. Yeah, so I guess, there's a lot more to it. In my world, I'm blind to a lot of this shit. I don't know much about stocks. It's just not, for me, I'm not educated enough on what I'm doing when it comes to stocks that, it's not an interest of mine. And I'm too afraid to lose money. Like, I think poker is really fucking cool. And yeah, I get it's a game of skill, but like, I'm not skilled. I'm probably not putting down money. I might put a couple of bucks in here or there, but at that point, like, why? I'm bored throwing in fucking $4 or $7 in a game of poker to just not know what I'm doing. I'm bored to throw fucking $37 into the stock market to fucking forget about it. I'd rather regular investments in, some other type of fund or something like that, or put money towards something else. Like, the stock isn't my thing. And everybody's telling me to get onto it, and I have been, but still, I put some money in, a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, whenever we were talking, I don't even remember. And I actually forgot to, I haven't checked it since the last time maybe 2 days before we talked about it last time. It's not my thing.
Well, if you start doing it more seriously and you have a day where you have a big loss, you start to get numb to it. Where when the pandemic hit,
Numb to the losses.
Oh yeah, when the pandemic really slammed the stock markets, I was having days where I was down $1,500, $2,000 in a day.
Holy shit! That's insane.
And those are small numbers compared to some people out there. But the first day I was upset, and then afterwards I was just like, all right, like, this is kind of fun now. What can you do?
Well, so now you got all these people that get some extra cash, and they're dropping in the stock market. But the extra cash thing, where's the money coming from?
Well, there's a whole bunch of different ideas out there. Andrew Yang's idea was primarily to apply a national value added tax, which is essentially a national sales tax. And he also wanted to apply an additional tax to companies that operate in industries that have high degrees of automation. So his his favorite pick was always Amazon, where Amazon's trying to automate more and more. And so automation's great in a lot of ways, but one of the things that it does is for a job that might have for a warehouse that might have had 500 employees 20 years ago and 1,000 employees 100 years ago, might only have 50 or 75 employees now because they've got automated sorters and conveyor belts and robotics and whatever that take a lot of the heavy lifting out of it. And so you have to look and say the direction that a lot of these industries is going is towards more automation. Even you can even look at it. I know in New York City it's big, but even down in South Carolina, there's fast food restaurants that have gotten away from where they might have had 4 or 5 cashiers. Now they've got 4 or 5 kiosks and one cashier.
You know, my bank here off of 7th Ave, right near Penn Station, right near Herald Square. It's a major bank, so you would think they need, it's a busy location, right? Lots of tourists, lots of people coming in and out of this bank. You would figure it would be staffed as much as any bank throughout the country would be, right? More or less. I would assume a Midtown Manhattan bank would be pretty well staffed in comparison to other branches.
Okay.
And what they did was, because they had maybe 12 teller windows, no, probably 10 teller windows, and they put like 3 or 4 giant ATM machines right in front of the teller windows, which to me was like a fuck you to the people that work there and were like on their way out losing their jobs. Like we didn't come up with some other way to put these somewhere else in the branch and just keep the windows, because the windows are there. They didn't do any modifications to any construction, or even implant them in the walls. They just covered over they put it right in front of the teller window. And it's a blatant reminder of people losing their jobs because of automation.
So Andrew Yang, one of his ideas was the industries that are going through a lot of automation right now. He's saying, look, you're able to profit off of something that you're not really returning these profits in a way that companies had in the past through wages and payroll taxes and stuff like that. So like when you've got kind of infinite scalability and infinite profitability, then we need to find additional taxes on that to be able to make that kind of income a little bit more equitably distributed. And that's what it comes down to, is when you've got somebody like Jeff Bezos who's worth almost $190 billion right now, people look at that and say that there's something inherently unfair about that. And you can want people to be rich and still look and see that $190 billion is a bit too much. And so, yeah, it would probably be a combination of a value-added tax on industries that are highly automated. And those are the 2 main ones. I'm sure there are other ideas for taxes out there. But that was his idea, is how to pay for it.
So we're taxing the businesses that are automating effectively.
Yeah.
So as automation goes up, taxes on those businesses go up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's an interesting theory to play around with. I think it seems reasonable to me. These companies are saving loads of money. They're saving money on salaries and wages,
mm-hmm.
and they're making more money because they're able to produce and operate more quickly.
Yep.
But, I'm just waiting for, for things to change. Where I hate dealing with automated answering machines. I hate going to I was at the airport. I mean, it's been going on for a while. Go to the airport. I sat at a bar for maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, almost a half hour, waiting for a waiter to come up to me at an airport bar, and nobody came up. Finally, somebody came around. It was quiet. Somebody came around. How do you who works here? I know they're open. And he goes, "No, you have to put your order in on an iPad."
What?
Yeah. And you're sitting at the bar. Every space has an iPad in front of you, which probably that's fucking bad now because people touch iPads. They touch their fucking eyeballs and they get coronavirus. But the fact that you're not ordering from a waiter, you're ordering from a fucking iPad. For me, that's frustrating because I want to talk to people sometimes.
Right, and so I think there's certainly industries that are more adaptable to to automation than others. But the whole point is where technology is going. Let's be honest. Is there going to be more automation in 10 years or less?
Of course. You know, Andrew Yang, you talked 25 minutes about freaking truck drivers and how it's harassment. So you can tell truck drivers to get a degree in coding, but if you tell something along the lines of you tell a reporter to get a degree in coding, that's like harassment and discrimination.
Yeah, but how realistic is it for a trucker to say, well, I've been just doing long haul trucking routes for 30 years. Now I'm going to all of a sudden learn how to like program in Linux. That's just not going to happen. Same thing for a coal miner. Like that's just not what they're going to do.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. That's obviously very clear in that counter argument, which I don't think the argument itself has any real basis. You know, it does.
No. Are there some portion of that workforce that can be retrained? Sure. But the idea that you're going to be able to take somebody who's been working in one industry for pretty much their entire professional life and then say, now you're going to do something completely different because we've automated your job. Most of those people are not really going to know what to do. They're going to want to work in the same thing that they've been doing because, one, that's what they're good at, and two, that's all they've known. And if those jobs start to dry up because of automation, you're going to increasingly have a larger and larger segment of the population that wants to work and cannot find it.
Yeah, well, I think that's happening. So what are you doing with these people that can't find work?
Well, Andrew Yang's solution and the universal basic income solution
is you pay them very little amount of money.
Well, that's where you get into the economics of it and the debate about how much do you pay people and when do you start the phase out. So the economists will always tell you that behavior is always a result of incentives. So you can't pay people, like if you do this universal basic income, you pay them too much, then they're not going to have any incentive to work. And you're like, all right, why would I have to work if I just get free money? So you need to have an income level that's set high enough that people can, in some sense, live off of at a very basic level, but low enough that you're still going to incentivize the vast majority of people to work. Now, what you might see is that there might be some people that choose to work less, that somebody was working full-time and with UBI might go down to a part-time or a three-quarter schedule.
Yeah.
But you still need to make it so that there's an incentive for the vast majority of people to continue producing. But you have to take care of the people that are being left behind through no fault of their own, that the industry that they invested themselves in started to automate their jobs away.
So what happens to these people? Do they get more money than the next person? I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So
yeah, and that's a tough question to answer. The easy answer is no. One of the proposals that I've seen and I'm going to make some numbers up here. An economist could do the optimization to figure out where it actually lies. But you basically you start off with everybody gets $20,000, and then once you make basically every dollar that you make, you lose 50% of your UBI. So if I make $0, if I don't work at all, I get $20,000. If I make $10,000 in wages, then I lose 5,000 of the UBI. So now my UBI is 15, and my wages are 10, so I'm at 25. So I'm better off working than I was not working. And you can play with the numbers however you want to, but you want to try and get a sweet spot where your marginal gains on work are higher than not working.
Yeah, but it's wild to, like, in that marginal area to be working.
I don't think so, because if I were making $20,000 a year not doing anything, it's not hard to make $10,000 or $15,000 a year. Yeah. And if I were to do that by working 3 or 4 days a week,
the amount of hours that you're putting in $10,000 worth of hours, but you're only getting $5,000 worth of additional income.
Yeah, and what you could also do
so that we got to get out of that range, but inside of that range where you're losing money,
Well, you know what you could also do is you could also make it so that way the first X number of dollars don't take away from UBI. So maybe the first $5,000 there's nothing. So you get $20,000, you can make up to $5,000 a year. So now you're making $25,000 without losing your UBI, and then after that, the 50% kicks in. There's all sorts of different ways to structure and incentivize it. Now, one of the biggest problems is how do you pay for this, which we already talked about a little bit, and a conservative objection to UBI is that you're paying people not to work and you're going to make people lazy, and also it's super expensive, and we already have too much government entitlement programs as it is. One counter argument that I throw back on that is we already have a lot of government entitlement programs. If we were to have the UBI, you could make the case that we could eliminate those programs. So what's the need to have Social Security if you've got UBI? Why do we need to pay people twice? So you can take the money that you're putting towards Social Security, take the money that you're putting towards Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, WIC, some of the housing and urban development, like subsidized government housing and everything. If you're just paying people directly, then they can take that money that they're getting and put it towards what the government would have otherwise been providing. It's one of the biggest tenets of conservatism is personal responsibility. And so what's a better example of personal responsibility than being in charge of your own money?
Well, a lot of people are not going to be very good at that.
Well, that's from a conservative point of view, who cares?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like, we're giving you the tools. If you choose not to succeed with them, that's not our problem.
But those people who are saying who cares care because now they got to do something else on the other end to clean up somebody else's bullshit decisions.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, we're talking about only in the U.S. Do they do this anywhere else?
There's been experiments that have been run in various countries. The most prominent example that I'm aware of is in Finland, and I think Finland and Switzerland. Switzerland did it early, and they found, for one, that like most people continue to work or only reduce their hours slightly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think there's one in like Georgia too in the U.S.
Oh yeah, there's been some small experiments in the United States. I'm not too aware of their findings, but the ones that I've heard of going off internationally have had generally like solid success.
I have somebody telling me here that the majority of the U.S. is not college educated, which is clear. But I think those are the people that are going to be hurt the most by your fast food workers, your retail workers, your non-skilled labor workers. Like these are the first guys out. I'm holding out. Thinking real estate's basically, with what we do in a changing market, we're not going anywhere for a while. Plus, we help negotiate deals. We help broker deals. And a lot of times, I can tell you when an owner and a buyer or a landlord and a renter are in contact with each other, the majority of the time those deals die because there's no buffer and people just people can't.
On the point about the education, I just looked it up.
Yeah.
So age 25 and over, 35% has a bachelor's degree, 45% has an associate's degree, 61% has some college. So
like dropping out.
Yeah, so like you took a couple classes at the community college, or even you were just a college dropout or whatever. But yeah, having completed at least an associate's degree, 45%. So he's right. The majority of the United States does not have.
No, Monica, we're talking about UBI, universal basic income. Is that what it's called? Basic.
Yep.
Which is an interesting topic. I think it's very simple at first, but like when you really break it down, is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? But you don't think you're going to see not a huge, but an immediate spike in day-to-day costs? Like your cost of milk is going to go up, provided it's not regulated. Your cost of fuel is going to go up, provided that's not regulated. Your cost of everything is going to go up because everybody's got more money all of a sudden.
So yeah, the question is, well, what inflationary effect does it have? because it's a simple supply and demand. If the supply of money goes up, then the value of money goes down. Therefore, the prices of other goods go up.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd have to look at it as a holistic picture in terms of how much net change in government spending is there. Because if you were to use UBI as a replacement for some of these other entitlement programs,
Exactly.
then you probably wouldn't see a major inflationary effect because you wouldn't be having a major effect on the overall supply of money.
I mean, somebody just said they don't think it's a good idea because of basic capitalism.
Well, they need to explain it a little bit more than that.
Well, I think free. So two things. What you just said, that makes sense. You know, if the government's not spending that much extra money, you know, we're not having that much inflation just because the government's not spending that much extra money. They're replacing programs. But in terms of free market, and I was going to reach out to a former agent that we had here, Anjali. She grew up, I believe she grew up in India, where there's a lot of very lower class, very poor people. Ah, shit, we're losing the stream here. I forgot to put on do not disturb. But she's very right wing, very Republican. You know, and she sees people that just aren't willing to work, don't really do anything, that just kind of, you know, live off of not very much. And that in the U.S. you have all these opportunities to work and all these opportunities to earn money, and I understand that. And I think, you know, in contrast to probably what it's like in India, it's a lot different here. But as we look into the future, where there's so many of these BS jobs that are just going to disappear, it sort of makes sense.
I think you have to be forward-looking with this and say the opportunities that exist today are going to diminish in the future. And some opportunities are going to be created because of it, but I think that the net effect is going to be overall lower job availability.
I agree. I mean, I think your retail jobs, like, look at the fucking retail market. Look at fucking shopping malls. Shopping malls aren't even open right now because of the coronavirus.
Shopping malls and the secondary retail market was doing poorly before the coronavirus.
Yeah,
coronavirus has not helped.
But
which is obvious.
How quickly people are to just give up on shopping in store, and it's just, you know, crazy that somebody would say, I got to try it on before I buy it. And now people are just buying shit, and they're buying TVs and electronics without seeing the stuff firsthand in person. And it's just very quickly it's very quick how this has happened. I didn't think that we would see it happen so quickly in our lifetime. I figure it would happen very gradually and we would barely notice it. But I think it's kind of a slippery slope when it comes to retail businesses closing down and consumer behavior. You know, why go to the mall to go to one store when, you know, 7 other places that you would normally visit and shop around aren't even there anymore?
Well, and also, why go to any retail store? If you know what you're looking for, then why waste the time and the travel and everything to go to a store to pay a higher price for something that you can get online relatively easily? Now, there are certain goods that you really do need to go into the store and see, but like a lot of purchases that people are making, you know what you're looking for, and you can find exactly what you want at a lower price online because online retailers have lower overhead and lower fixed costs than retail stores.
They're making less money per transaction. I was going to say you can't influence people because you don't have fucking kiosks and things like that.
Yeah, but
they still have pop-up ads and they still have...
Right, you still got web-based advertising, but your fixed overhead on an online operation is just so drastically lower.
Well, think about, you know, that for whatever reason makes me think of gas stations. And down the street from where I grew up, this is crazy to think about. It's a gas station that had one pump. You remember that shit? It was only
Stewart's on the corner of
whatever.
7 and
Yeah. So they had one pump, but back in the day, you used to pump your gas and then go in and pay, requiring that every person buying gas, given it wasn't full service, every person buying gas had to step inside of the store, which then, you buy a cup of coffee for $1, or you buy some gum, or you buy whatever you're going to buy just because you're there. And you're having to spend the 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes to go in and buy whatever. But then they started putting the credit card terminals at the pumps. And now a lot of people don't even go inside of the shop. So
I probably only go inside a gas station maybe 20% of the time that I stop to get gas.
yeah, so a lot of people are not spending that extra money that you would if you were forced to go inside.
Well, and the business model for convenience stores is that the margins that they have on fuel is actually very low.
Well, of course, they're not making any money on gas. I mean, they're making some, I assume, but
Yeah, but very little. The way that they make their money is by the stuff inside the store.
every gas station in Manhattan's going. I'm running low on gas in the bike. I get the lights on, and I was going to stop at the station on my way home today, and I walked by the station, and I don't know what they were doing, but it was under construction. And every gas station I see under construction in Manhattan just disappears fucking 2 weeks later, and it's a parking lot, and then it's a fucking 40-story building. So, I know there's no way gas stations are making real money unless they're like a repair shop also. But then they're losing all this space. Space is a huge commodity here. They're losing all this space on pumping gas when they could be doing some other shit with that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know. The fucking UBI thing is, I don't know. I think that brings us much more socialistic, much more, think about it. Like, that's the direction it's bringing us. Not that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If you think there's something wrong with that, then there's something wrong with UBI. But if you don't think there's anything wrong with that and you're cool with that, then okay. But I think it brings us much more of a socialist.
Well, you have to look at it in this way, that as the world progresses, I think everyone can agree that automation is going to increase. And the benefits of automation are not going to be shared equally. Some people are going to do extremely well because they happen to be in an industry and at the top of a pyramid where the automation feeds up to them. But there's going to be a lot of people left behind. And so you have to say, is it right? Is it best for a society to allow for extremely striated growth and the benefits of this technology to go to a select few that's kind of haphazardly selected? Or do we try and find a way of taking some of that prodigious growth and bringing it back to other people that wouldn't have access to it? And that's a socialistic idea, but you have to look and say, how fair is it? Even as the United States is structured today, there are heavily socialized aspects of our society.
Yeah, of course. I mean, after some of the recent podcasts we did, I had myself questioning democracy, where you have this small group being the loudest, potentially being the least educated, making the most noise, being the ones that pass bills and pass laws.
Yeah, because like a couple examples of socialism in the United States that exist today, public education is a huge one. But Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, WIC, all of that is socialism. And let's just focus on education. So if we didn't have public education, now most schools, now it depends greatly on the country, but I think in South Carolina, the average cost per student is probably about $11,000. So imagine if you're a family, if there's no public education and you've got 2 kids, that's $22,000 a year that you have to pay to get your kids into school. Some families can afford that, but a lot of families couldn't. So how do we pay for education right now? Well, it's through property taxes. So people who don't have kids are paying for kids to go to school. Like, I live in an apartment, and part of my rent, I'm sure, is going to property tax. I don't have kids. I get no benefit whatsoever from the property taxes that I pay. But other people do, and I'm okay with that.
You got a smarter person making your subs, flipping your burgers.
Sure. There's certainly ancillary benefits to public education but the point is, public education is an extremely socialized good. And so I think there's been a lot of work done to try and make socialism with a negative connotation.
Well,
And
I actually think the fucking public school system, I think we're going to have a lot. There's so much challenging happening right now, challenging across fucking all fronts, which is, we talked about a tolerance thing. Like, it's good to be intolerant in some respects, and it's fucking, but people need to build their tolerance in other respects.
Mm-hmm.
But like, them trying to teach evolution theory and creation theory in fucking high school as two theories.
Yeah, that's a completely separate debate that we
No,
can go off the
get,
rails just talking about that.
The more socialist you go, like, we have major fucking issues. Just like when you get into food stamps, like, that'd be great if everybody got basic goods, that farms were subsidized by the U.S. and they produced certain goods and everybody got those certain goods. But then, you got one person saying fucking corn syrup is good for you because, some biblical figure liked corn. And then, I don't know. So my fucking rant on a bit of a tangent, but
my whole thing on the whole socialism debate is that we already have socialism.
Yeah, we do, of course. Yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody's going to argue that these different government programs are not socialist type programs.
Right. And so the question isn't whether or not we should have socialism. That's already been answered. The question is, how should we do socialism in such a way that is the most fair to the most amount of people?
Yeah. Well,
because if you privatize everything, think about police and fire services. That used to be privatized. Fire departments started off privatized, where you'd start a company that would have a fire truck or whatever, and you'd have to pay dues like an insurance company to the fire department. And if you didn't pay, then they would watch your house burn down. And like, if you had, let's say I had a house next to yours, I had fire insurance through this private fire company and you didn't. If your house started to burn down, I would call you up and say, hey, make sure my house doesn't burn down next to his, like make sure his doesn't catch mine on fire. But they would stand there and watch your house burn down. Even though we can kind of look at that and say that's not right to let someone's house burn down when you have the tools to fix it.
Yeah, but
privatization
tools cost money. Tools cost money. And I get that. Look at downtown South Carolina, where you have, it's been a fucking decade since I lived there, but I just remember so many houses being restored and pristine, and then so many houses just being fucking dilapidated.
It's still that way. There's been a lot of development. You haven't been here in probably 8 or 9 years, but
2012 was
yeah.
when I visited.
But yeah, it's still that way, where there are sections of downtown Charleston that like the houses look like they were built in the 1700s or whatever, and they still look as good as the day they were built. And then you've got some houses that were built in the 40 or 50s that look like they were built in the 40 or 50s and nobody even painted them since.
And they went through a hurricane.
Yes. But yeah, so the whole idea about socialism is like hyper privatization leads to really inequitable results. And the question is, what degree of equity do we want in society? And I don't think anyone's arguing that we should have a society like Soviet Russia where they try and make everybody equal. But having a hyper-capitalist society where everything's privatized and everything has a cost that you have to pay for directly leaves a lot of people out as well.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be up to us. I don't think it's going to be up to us. I think we're going to have a Ocasio-Cortez or a Bernie Sanders or somebody like that come into power and push it this shit through. Andrew Yang actually is an intelligent guy, and I feel like he would do a much better job than the other two implementing something like this. Because
I completely agree.
I'm a smart guy, but
well, problem with Ocasio-Cortez, she does a very good job at some of the things. Like, she's very good at staying on message and bringing certain issues to light. But when it comes to anything with an economic bend, she's terrible, because that's not her training. And some of the proposals, because I work in accounting, I work in a financial field, and like, I've got a financial mind, and I look at some of her proposals and I just say that's, for example, one of her ideas is that she's wanting to tax capital gains on unrealized stocks. So if you have a stock that you bought in January, and let's say it went up 400%, you're not going to have to pay tax on those gains until you sell the stock.
Mm-hmm.
One of her proposals, and I don't know all the details of it because it might be if you're above a certain income level that this would kick in, but unrealized gains would mean that at the end of the year, even if you haven't sold that stock, you'd have to pay the gain that year. So you haven't gotten any cash from the stock yet.
Next year. You could lose next year, but you're paying in the gain this year.
Yeah.
Which is
right.
So, oh my God.
So
that doesn't even make sense.
Right, but because you're taxing a non-cash item, and you're requiring cash to pay for a non-cash item. The thing about when you sell a stock and you've got a gain is you have cash to directly correspond to that transaction. You sold the stock, you got money for the stock. There's a built-in gain there. You pay tax on the gain, but because you sold the stock, you have the cash to pay for it. But if you have unrealized gains, then you might have a tax bill, but no corresponding cash flow to cover it.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And so it's proposals like that make me turn off to any of her suggestions when it comes to economic policy.
Proposing such fucking bad ideas.
Because to somebody who doesn't have a background in economics or finance, then they think,
I don't have a background in economics or finance. I'm not a retarded person.
But if you just think about it without analyzing it, and you say, well, we've got all these people that are making all this money on stocks, so we should be taxing them more, then it sounds like a good idea.
If you end on that fucking period,
right? But
it's stop point. Like that's.
But to some people, that's all they hear is these people are sitting on stocks that are worth 10 times what they bought them for. Why aren't they paying tax on it?
It's like fucking paying people on ideas. Hasn't come to fruition. The fucking ink hasn't hit the paper. Like, what? You're not paying someone an idea of a book. It could be a shit book. You're paying them on the fucking completed book, and then off the sales of the book. But that's real.
Yeah, another idea, and I think Bernie Sanders was in on this one as well, is a tax on stock trades, where every time you put in a stock trade, there's a small tax that's applied to the trade, to the order itself.
I like that idea a lot better than a lot of other shit because traditionally you're paying broker fees.
Yeah, but so
and
this
now
would
you're
be
not. That's your automation. That's your Andrew Yang. You're paying per transaction on what is now automated versus paying somebody else to do it.
Yeah, my issue with that one is that you're decreasing liquidity in the markets, and
there's upsides and downsides. You gotta weigh it, and I don't think that's a bad one. I
think it's it's almost as bad as taxing unrealized gains.
But but people have been paying for it for decades.
Yeah, but
so now that cost goes away.
Right, but the thing is, the broker fees that you were paying, like commissions on trades and whatnot, that money wasn't really going to the government. That was going to the broker. Now, the broker might have paid eventually in terms of income tax on their income, but brokers are still making money. They found, like, all these trading commissions that have gone away. It's not like the brokers are just all of a sudden going under. They found alternative revenue streams. They're doing just fine. So it's the fact that you now have free stock trades for retail investors doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, but but now you don't have as many stockbrokers. Not brokerage houses, but actual brokers.
Yeah, but all those people that were working as stockbrokers have pretty much all of them have found jobs somewhere else in the industry. Um, like I'm not at all concerned about the financial investing career path and the people that work in those markets. The the revenue that's occurring in that industry is more than enough to cover the small loss of the trading commissions that they gain. The whole idea is you're introducing friction into a transaction, and these transactions happen billions of times a day. And if you decrease the volume of those, then you're going to introduce inefficiencies into the market, and it's going to be a lot harder for goods to be priced appropriately. If you want to generate more revenue from the stock market, there's other ways to do it.
All right, look, I'm going to refresh my drink real quick. It just means I got to run to the fridge. But I want to add something. My final opinion on the UBI here. You tell me what you think. Let me just grab this real quick.
Yeah, fire away.
All right. So I think a basic UBI at a reasonable dollar amount. I like the $20,000 amount. I like the $30,000 amount. Although I think it should be based on median income for the area. I think that would make a little more sense. Because I'll give you an example. We're talking about getting unemployment or getting pandemic pay and things like that. My expenses are obnoxious compared to other people that I know that are in the industry, or just other people that I know and some of these people make more money than I do, but my expenses are way higher because I'm running the business.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to get the same amount of money as somebody else and still and end up losing money, when especially in my role, I provide a platform where other people can work. It's really, really frustrating for me, and it's not fair. I mean, I'm not complaining it's not fair, but I just think objectively it's not fair that I get as much money as somebody else who has no expenses, and I end up losing money still. But I think a reasonable amount of UBI, as long as the cost can be accounted for, seems very reasonable to me.
What do you mean by the cost can be accounted for?
Well, if we start taking it from other government programs, or if we slide on a tax somewhere, or maybe if the money, I don't know, like let's say you get a certain amount of money that's tax deductible or something along these lines if you spend it on certain goods like American made products or something like that.
Well, then that's kind of a government subsidy, a commodity subsidy. The idea of indexing UBI regionally makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of, you haven't heard as much about this recently, but back when the debate about $15 an hour as a national minimum wage was really hot, I can understand where they're coming from. The problem is that doing that nationally is problematic because $15 an hour in a small town in West Virginia is very different than $15 an hour in New York or San Francisco.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just think it's funny that somebody who lives in Manhattan got as much money as somebody that lives in, rural Tennessee.
Right.
I mean, that's, and you're not saying, I mean, like you can make the argument, well, the person in Manhattan has more money or makes more money. Sure, but their expenses are also fucking way higher.
Right. So yeah, having a system where you could have some sort of indexing for regional cost of living would make sense. And the other thing that I would say when it comes to UBI, because I was doing some numbers before, so you could also have it so that it kind of, first of all, not every single person in the country would get it. Like, you could make it so that it doesn't apply to children, or it applies to children at a much lower amount. So let's say adults get 20,000, maybe the kids get 5, because what do kids have to pay for compared to adults?
No, but
So,
well, they're not giving the kids that money directly, anyways. But parents,
yeah, but you could make it, and also, like, if we were to go with the $20,000 a year figure again or whatever, first of all, not everybody would be getting the full 20,000, because you'd have plenty of people that would still want to work, like, that would be making more than enough to cover the UBI phase out, so they'd be getting 0 in UBI.
well, let me just ask a quick question, because I got a few people from different countries. Somebody asked me if I'm drinking Foster's, or I should be drinking Foster's. Somebody, I'm guessing, in Australia.
Australia, Foster's isn't bad.
And Foster's is a good beer. Foster's strong, right? A high alcohol content.
Not super high. 5
Um,
or 6%.
Anybody who's watching right now, I'm just curious what you think would be a good annual amount of money if there was UBI, universal basic income. What is a good amount of money to receive every year in general? $20,000 for everybody, $30,000 for everybody, $1,000 a month for everybody. What's a good number? Somebody, Brazil too. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious what that amount is, and what, like what rent looks like. What's that, what do you think the average rent price is in Charleston, South Carolina? Because it's $3,000 for a 1-bedroom in Manhattan. It's a 1-bedroom, so that's a single person or a couple.
Average rent for an apartment in Charleston is $1,372.
Wow, roughly what, a third of what you're looking at here.
What was the number in New York?
About a little over 3,000. Although the probably is dropping.
So it's more like 40%.
Man, I just remember what we were paying rent, over a decade ago.
I'm paying my rent right now, split with a roommate before utilities, is $1,200.
So that's the total. That's the gross.
Yeah. So
wow.
The rent on the apartment is $1,200. I've still got to pay for electricity and cable.
And you've got the 2-bed, 2-bath, laundry, fireplace. You got a dishwasher. You got a balcony. You got a library. Balcony. You got a library there.
A library
behind you.
Oh yeah.
You got the volleyball courts, the pool, the tennis courts.
The workout center next to the office.
There's a gym there?
Yeah, a small little gym.
I don't know if I remember.
But yeah, pool, hot tub, all the stuff that you just listed. $1,200 a month for it's probably about a 900 square foot apartment. I don't really know. But yeah, 2-bed, 2 full bath.
Yeah,
So take my apartment. You know what my apartment's like. You've been here.
There for a couple of years.
Take my apartment and put it within a 2-block radius of where your apartment is in New York City right now. What would the rent be?
I would say $6,500, maybe $7,000.
Yeah.
I looked at a small 2-bedroom with a balcony, and that was about $5,000, and it was the sickest deal. I was like, holy shit, I need to move here. But I didn't, it doesn't make sense to spend money on rent for the sake of spending money.
Right.
Because it's a good deal. Like I didn't need the space. So I didn't do it. Now I fucking regret not having done it, because I would have loved extra space for an office, for guests, balcony, huge balcony, especially in the summertime, being able to go out the balcony, light up a hookah, smoke some cigars, just chill the fuck out outside.
$60,000 a year on rent, though.
Exactly. But when a comparable apartment is another $1,500, another almost $20,000 a year.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole concept of rent in New York City compared to, like, LA and San Francisco are having the same problem. San Diego, basically a lot of California. But you know what? So my brother lives in Sacramento.
Yeah.
He's got an apartment 2 blocks from the state capitol, right smack in the middle of the downtown.
Okay.
Now, it's not a super luxurious apartment or whatever, but it's a pretty prime location, and it's a 2-bed, 1-bath. He's paying like $1,400 a month in rent.
Total.
He might have utilities on top of
But
that.
no, the gross for a 2-bed, 1-bath is 14.
Yeah, ballpark.
Well, that doesn't seem too bad. So let me ask you, illustrate for me the best version of UBI that you can see it right now.
I like your idea about indexing it to some kind of a regional cost of living. But yeah, the best UBI is going to be, I'd say, first of all, children get less than adults. And then the exact strike point of what the basic income level is, I think that needs further analysis than me just saying 20,000. But 20,000 feels about right, because I'm taking what the poverty line is and adding in a little bit of cushion, because honestly, you can't live on the poverty line.
And is this amount taxed?
I would say the way that you structure the tax code is that if you're getting the $20,000 and that's your only income, then it's not going to be taxed because it's going to be part of your standard deduction. You make the standard deduction equal to UBI, so that way if you only have UBI, then that's tax free, and you increase the marginal rates to accommodate for the fact that like government expenditures are going to be a little bit higher. So if you start out earning UBI by a lot, then your marginal rates are a little higher. Right now, the marginal rates are pretty low. Our top marginal rate right now is 37%.
It's nuts, yeah. But you're making a lot of money at that point. What's the income on
that? If you're single, I think it's like 400. You cross the highest marginal rate once you cross like 400 something thousand. 2020 tax brackets. But so you make it so that here we go. Let me since it just popped up. Okay, tax brackets for single 510,000. Every dollar you earn over 510,000 is taxed at 37%.
37 and a half. Same thing. But I mean, I think you say 20,000. I think like what I lived on when I lived in South Carolina was probably after tax right in that 20,000 range. Mm-hmm. Like legit, think about it. Yeah. Because I was making basically minimum wage when you account for the overtime, maybe a little more. But
that ERAC?
Yeah. And those were tough times. Like, I remember saving $100 of fucking paycheck for months to be able to go buy a fucking winter jacket or something, like something along those lines. Which is just crazy. You move to New York City and like you go out for one night and you get a little drunk and you order too much. You're like, fuck, the bill is $450. I mean, now, like if I go out with some of the guys from here, I'm lucky if my bill's fucking $450. But it's just a fucking different economy. But I feel like with the regularity of the income, you can budget. That's one thing that I've never been able to figure the fuck out, because I'll budget month to month over the course of a year, but then 1 year over the other year could be a huge difference. Especially the bullshit rental laws that came out last year that fucking crippled our business after they came out. They were.
Well, yeah. So as an independent contractor, like you have a harder time budgeting. So the UBI helps. But so just to answer your question as quickly as possible, it's set the standard deduction at the UBI level. So that way someone who's making only UBI doesn't pay tax on it. Increase the marginal rate slightly so that way people are paying more tax on their income. But there's always that floor. And you set the UBI level to what the poverty line used to be, plus a little bit extra, because honestly, the poverty line is kind of bullshit. Now, you do need to adjust that for regionality, because $20,000 goes a lot farther in Charleston than it does in New York, as we've discussed. And then you design some kind of a phase out. And this is the part where it's a lot harder. Like I don't have the knowledge to be able to make this determination, but you make the phase out in such a way that it still incentivizes people to work. Maybe you do 50 cents on the dollar, maybe you do 33 cents on the dollar, maybe you have the first 5,000 or 10,000 that you earn doesn't go against your UBI. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, and that's kind of something that an economist would have to study, and I just don't have the background in terms of doing the analytics on that, because you need to have you need to do like real world economic studies on it, and I don't know if the data is completely out on that yet. But you have some form of a phase out to make it so that people are not disincentivized to work. There's always going to be a certain segment of the population that's going to be happy with just the 20,000 in code.
Just how quick, you got 20 seconds before I got to refresh the feed over here. So, but
no, that's it. Is standard deduction, set the UBI to poverty level, standard deduction equals that, increase the marginal rates, and design a phase out so that people are still incentivized to work.
yeah, I like that, and fair enough. I'm going to stop this one, Cash, real quick, and then let's wrap up a little bit. There's one more thing I want to talk about. I'll get there in a second. Now, let me just refresh this feed. Sorry, guys. We gotta refresh this. All right. That ended. Oh, gee, it sucks when it ends. Very sad. So let me just share with you kind of my idea. You know, you just shared what you were thinking on the UBI and what's ideal. I'm thinking, because my concern is that it costs the government too much money, and that we see, like, we're seeing everybody getting unemployment. We're seeing all these additional costs for state governments and local governments. The money that I got from New York City to retain employees and all these other businesses, like, that's a lot. A lot of these fucking local governments, city and state governments run a shoestring budget. So,
and unlike the federal government, they can't run deficits.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not a possibility. So I'm really concerned with, like, where different money comes from and where it's being pulled from. And I imagine that, like, things must be really, really tough right now because we don't have a federal program to really account for everything. But when it comes to a monthly amount, I think the country would be a better place if everybody got an extra $1,000 a month. I think because I don't think a UBI is supposed to cover everybody's life expenses. I don't think it's supposed to cover housing and food and school and clothing. Like, I don't think it's supposed to cover all that stuff. I think it's supposed to be.
Some versions are. It depends.
Well, some versions, but my thinking of, like, how it's going to work is not going to be it's going to cover your. Like, there still has to be some incentivization for people to do.
Right.
And that's my thinking. Like, there's going to be a lot of people that are doing next to nothing who are going to make this money. And I'm really curious if we see a more segmentation of class with UBI, or if we see it kind of mold and we see a little more middle class.
That's a good question.
I think we're going to see a more segmented. I think we're going to see more people that cling on to this low amount and do stupid shit with it. But I could be wrong, because I can also see the converse, like, where people invest the money and do smart stuff with it.
Well, the problem with investment is that investment doesn't lead directly to economic activity like consumption does. So if you've got these people that are doing nothing with the $20,000, the worst thing that they can do with it from an economist perspective is to save it. What you want those people to do with the $20,000 is to go out and buy shit.
Exactly. But I think, if you just flipped a switch in my life, I don't think I would. And I just was getting $1,000. Just same thing with, like, pandemic pay or whatever it was we got. It had literally zero effect in my life in terms of what I was doing. Was it an extra $1,200 in my bank? Yeah, hell yeah. And What did I do with that? I would probably put it towards rent or some, fucking advertising or marketing. One of the fucking databases that I spend fucking $2,000 a month on, but it didn't affect me. But I feel like a lot more people would be affected. They wouldn't work as hard. But it's not going to be enough money. I think that's why I think $1,000 a month is a regular amount. It's not being paid weekly. It's being paid monthly, and people will behave differently with that amount of money.
Well, for sure, yeah. UBI is going to change behavior. It's really a question of how drastically does it change.
Yeah. So, really quick, I wanted to touch on just quick subject because I want to wrap in a minute, and I want to talk about maintaining productivity during coronavirus, during quarantine, during different shit being shut down. Somebody just asked me about that. I told them I would touch on it. Do you feel that you've stayed just as productive, if not more productive, or if not less productive over the course of the last 4 or 5 months?
Slightly less.
Slightly less, for real?
Yeah, especially when there was about a month-long period where our firm didn't mandate working from home, but strongly encouraged it. And for the first week, it was great because I'm like, sweet, I can sleep in an extra 30 minutes. I don't have to worry about work clothes. I don't have to drive to work. I can cook here. But the problem for me is that, like, I don't really have a dedicated workspace. So having just desk space to lay out my papers, because a lot of what I'm doing
Which you don't have. We've seen your desk. Hold on one second. Hey guys, I'm going to ask for some questions, some viewer feedback in just a second. If you're watching this, don't go anywhere. I want your questions. I want to hear what you got to say. I want to answer this stuff. James is going to be listening, so don't go anywhere. Hold those questions. Give me 2 minutes. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, when I'm at home, I've got all these other distractions, not just not having the proper workspace set up. Because like I'll have to use my bed as like my desk. So I'll turn around, do work on that, turn back around, get on the computer. But also like my computer's where I play video games and watch movies and stuff. So like I'll just be like, oh, I wonder like I could play a video game right now, or it's just any little distraction.
Less productive.
Oh, I was good for the first week, and then after that, I felt my productivity dropping, and then I actually, even though they didn't want me to, I started going back into the office. I just said, I'm going to be here, and they said, all right.
I feel like I've been so much more productive. I during the most part, for the most part of what I do day to day, like I'm super reactive. I am literally just a cog. I'm a fucking gear, and I'm just doing. Like I'm dealing with what happened. But when I don't have that coming at me type of force, like I got to deal with all day long, I get creative in the sense that I don't fucking sit still. Like I'm a really difficult person to date and want to fucking lay in on a Sunday morning because I'm up. Lately, I've been up so fucking early. Like I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, oh fuck, like I gotta lay here for another. I've been waking up at 5:30, going, fuck, this is too early. Like there's nothing for me to do. And I'm going to be tired later, so I need to sleep like another half hour, another 45 minutes. But it's tough to do, and then if I don't fall right asleep, my brain starts fucking running. Like, I'll get up. But I've been doing all this shit to like keep my mind active and stay busy. What I started doing really early on because I had all this extra free time in the office was sending people video messages on their birthday. And I've gotten a hell of a lot busier, but I really enjoy doing that. Like that's a new thing I'm definitely going to stick with, is just doing these video messages. But I told you about the candles?
No.
So
or maybe you briefly mentioned it.
So what I started doing was making candles. We talked about this before. I started cutting wine bottles in half and filling them with wax and buying some really nice scented different oils, fragrance oils and stuff to go in the candles. And I'm working on branding. What I really need is somebody to help me with fucking branding. So if anybody's paying attention, somebody just said I sound like cancer. Not even a fucking smoker. You sound like cancer. But I really need somebody to help me build this logo. Got this great idea. I got a vision, but it's just not. I can't picture in my head what I want for a logo. So it's really.
Because you're not a particularly artistic person.
I am zero artistic. Like literally, fucking drawing a Connect 4 is difficult for me. Like, I can't color within the lines. Like, I don't have any fucking patience. I'm not creative. You can give me an outline, I'll come up with some cool shit. But like creativity is not what I got. So, but I need help with this logo. But yeah, productivity for me during the pandemic was like, it was like fucking double. I built 2 different websites during the pandemic, which is crazy. Like I'm not a fucking web designer. So, and I actually have a Zoom meeting tomorrow to potentially start a real estate school. So I think that'd be fucking awesome. It'd be great.
That would be fun.
Be a great funnel for new agents, and I'd also be able to like teach people fucking real world stuff. It'd be like a learner, driver's ed class where like I actually teach you about driving, even though you haven't stepped foot in the car yet. Getting the real estate license is a lot like getting your permit, where you haven't driven yet, and then like you show up in my office and you're like, hey, like I'm a race car driver. I'm fucking NASCAR, man. I'm Indy 500. Like, but you only have the license right now, so like you actually. Like that's only in your head.
Yeah, and I'm gonna watch you spin out in the first turn.
Exactly, but it would be cool if I could be a bit more hands-on with these people in terms of teaching them and getting them the permit, getting them the license, a real estate license, and permitting. So look, let me just hit some comments real quick. Hi from Germany. We got Australia, Germany, Brazil.
Oh, that's great.
TikTok is fire, actually. I have to say. Let's see. Somebody did. All right, hit me on the logos. But if you guys have questions you want us to answer, somebody about my horse. Oh, thank you, Tori. I appreciate that. Something about cancer, meaning the horoscope. Not I sound like fucking cancer.
Oh well, I am.
You have cancer?
No.
Oh, you are cancer? Yeah. No surprise. I don't know shit about horoscopes. That's not my thing. I think generalized stereotype horoscopes are.
I put no weight into astrology.
Well, I agree with them because they're mostly right.
Yeah, because they're written in such a way that they're right for everybody.
In a very broad.
Right.
Very broad. I just got my VA license before COVID. I'm going to DC. We get Tori tells me I don't actually have cancer. Airplane scented candles. What is that, like fart and
Disinfectant.
and what does an airplane smell like?
Kerosene.
No, it does. It's
Jet fuel is kerosene.
No, yeah, but you don't smell that in the fucking plane.
You do when you first get on.
Do you? When you're getting on. Maybe it's in the air because they refuel. What do you smell on an airplane other than farts? Funny thing, I listen to so many podcasts now. Listen to a podcast where they're talking about masks being the anti-equivalent of farts. So basically, you wear a mask. Not wearing a mask is like farting. So like if you're on an elevator, you don't have a mask on, it's a lot like passing gas.
Elevator is the best place to do it. You got a captive audience.
It's disrespectful to pass gas on an elevator. You're around other people. So, if you pass gas and, somebody is turned off by that, that would be a good time to be wearing a mask. And if you're not wearing a mask, you're a prick. You're going to fart in that fucking elevator. Sometimes I get on an empty elevator. I'm like, oh, should I, I'm about to fart. Like, I'll just let it. But I'm like, fuck, what if this shit opens on like the 4th floor? Somebody else gets on. I get on.
Blame it on the guy before you.
Yeah, the guy you got off at 6. You're a smelly motherfucker. Like, sorry, I'm not interacting that much with fucking people in an elevator. But yeah, every once in a while I get in an elevator and it fucking reeks. I'm just like, fuck, I hope this shit doesn't open up to somebody else and they think it's me that reeks.
Well, that's your excuse from here on out.
That's my excuse. Let's see what else we get. Venezuela. We got Venezuela in the house. Smells like a house cleaned up for a long time. Stagnant. They smell. Every place else smells musty.
Yeah.
When was the last time you flew? Is it a good time to move to New York City as a renter? Yes. It is 100%. You will get the best deal. Send me a DM. But definitely when it comes to renting in New York City now is probably the best time I've ever seen.
But is there serious downward pressure on rent right now?
No. The rent is not moving. We should actually talk about this next podcast. Rent's not moving. Reason is if the rent for an apartment is $3,000, somebody moved out there paying $3,000, landlord wants $3,000, probably wants $3,200 because they're used to it going up. The issue is the landlord's not ready to take $2,500. The building value is based off what the rent roll is. The rent roll being the monthly rent collection. So if they want to refinance or if they want to sell the building is only worth what they hold leases for a monthly rental amount, right? You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the reason landlords are really reluctant to drop prices. However, right now, and some are dropping prices, but not very common. Right now, they'll give you 2 months free, or they'll pay the broker fee. So there's a lot more incentives out there to keep the rent at the same price.
So they'll keep the rent the same price, but they'll add in something else that's nice, so that way they can keep the rent roll in a place where it represents value for the building, but you're still getting a deal as a renter.
Yeah, because a temporary vacancy doesn't affect the value of the building. Where if they sign 5 leases in one building for some bullshit, 70% of their regular rent, and they're locked into that shit for the next 12 years, they're fucked. Right? These are their fair market, effectively. You know, they come out, they're not super rent regulated apartments. But we had a law that came out last year that actually fucking makes it really difficult to increase rent, which sounds like a good thing, but like I think the max they can increase the rent is like $83 a month. So when you have an apartment that somebody's lived in since 1983, they move out and the fucking place is destroyed and needs a gut renovation, no landlord is going to do any fucking work to that apartment to only increase the rent by fucking $83 a month.
Yeah.
You know, in a year they're making fucking $1,000 extra. They put fucking $138,000 for the fucking renovations. They're gonna wait fucking 130 years to regain their fucking loss? I don't think so. It's a shit though.
That's basic economics too, though. It's if you have a price ceiling, it leads to a shortage, because it means that eventually inventory will get taken. If I can only charge so much for a certain piece of inventory, if I'm starting to look at that as a loss, I would rather take it off the market than lose money on it.
Yeah.
And it decreases supply in the market. And if price can't increase to correspond to the increased demand, then you just end up with a shortage.
Yeah. Somebody's telling me they can negotiate with cleaning snow or taking out the garbage to get a better price on rent. That is not the case in New York City. Definitely not the case in New York City. Somebody else talking about flying Southwest or moving to New York City. But that's all I got for right now. Unless somebody's got a quick last minute question, I'd love to hear it. But I think we'll wrap up. With jury's still out, in my opinion. Jury's still out on UBI. Basic UBI, I think, not a bad idea. But we still got to work it out. We need somebody with a good proposal. We need somebody popular that people are listening to. Unfortunately, not Andrew Yang, because people looked at him thinking he was never going to be president, a lot of people. And it was just an idea that was going to pass, and it wasn't a real serious thing.
I think Yang was ahead of his time. I don't think we've seen the last of him.
I agree completely. So that's it. Thank you, James.
All right. Until Thursday.
You officially made it to the end. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking this video, if you did. And if you didn't, thank you in advance. All right. See you guys.